Hello and welcome to the Yoderverse podcast. Very glad to have you here. Today will be a relatively quick one, but before we begin, again, thank you for being here. And if you find value out of this, be sure to subscribe or like, comment what you think, and also feel free to leave suggestions as to topics you'd like for me to cover in the future. And without further ado, let's begin. So, today's episode spawned from a quote. If you know me, you'd know that Spider Man Far From Home is one of my favorite movies. The trilogy Spider Man in general is one of my favorite movies, Marvel movies at least. And one quote from the movies is expect disappointment and you'll never be disappointed. So I've been thinking about it, and is there truth to that? Maybe, maybe not. So that's what I wanted to think about. So we're going to do the yes, the truth in the statement, and also the no, what could be negative in believing something like that. This particular line has deeply resonated with audiences worldwide, myself included, because it encapsulates a universal defense mechanism that many people employ in their daily lives. It represents a common psychological strategy where individuals deliberately lower their expectations or prepare for the worst possible outcome to shield themselves from the emotional impact of failure and rejection, so on and so forth. But this perspective stands in stark contrast to the traditionally championed mindset of unwavering optimism, the age-old wisdom that encourages to dream big, maintain hope, even in challenging circumstances, and persistently reach for seemingly impossible goals. So, what is the truth to this statement? The practice of expecting disappointment serves as a sophisticated psychological defense, as mentioned previously, by mentally preparing for less than ideal outcomes. Or basically, preparing for things. Of course, you don't know what's going to happen, but you don't expect a good or overly great thing to happen. So, what scenarios might you find yourself in where you expect a disappointment? It can be competitive scenarios, whether you're submitting an application for a job, maybe one where there's a lot of competition for that job, or maybe it's in a physical sports competition where you're going against someone or a group of people competing for the same prize. It might be in an area of uncertainty when trying something new. You tend to not want to hype yourself up too much, if that makes sense, to always expect less than average. It can be good and bad in some cases, and we acknowledge and accept the possibility of setbacks from the outset of that venture or that thing that you're going into. This mindset helps prevent minor setbacks from becoming major emotional obstacles. This perspective aligns closely with the ancient philosophical tradition of Stoicism, a school of thought that emphasizes the importance of focusing on elements within our control while maintaining emotional equilibrium in the face of life's inherent uncertainties. By adopting this mindset, you're not embracing pessimism, but rather developing a pragmatic approach to life's unpredictability while building psychological resilience. So, the first one, as to summarize, the first is emotional self defense. The second, I think, would be protecting mental health. The wisdom embedded in this approach extends beyond mere emotional protection. It serves as a valuable tool for maintaining long-term well-being. Basically, you carefully manage your expectations so that you don't get hurt or offended in that situation, especially high-pressure situations. For example, consider a professional artist preparing to showcase their latest creation. Rather than anticipating universal acclaim, They approach the exhibition with the understanding that artistic appreciation is inherently subjective and that critical responses are inevitable. Basically, you should be prepared for as many opinions as there are people looking at your art. This balanced perspective allows them to maintain their creative authenticity and focus on artistic growth rather than becoming overwhelmed by the pressure to achieve unanimous approval. Which would basically mean that everyone is entitled to an opinion about your artwork or that thing that you're working on. And by accepting that, you have positioned yourself in a way that you're not really hurt by the things that people say. Hence, we're expecting, it connects to expecting disappointment. But the good thing about expecting it is that it's easier to deal with it. So, this approach fundamentally centers on the strategic conservation of emotional resources, creating a sustainable buffer against potential disappointment while maintaining a realistic perspective on life's inherent challenges and uncertainties as well. And then now we move on to the negative side of it. The most significant drawback of consistently anticipating disappointment is its potential to diminish our capacity or to fully experience and appreciate life's positive moments. Basically, when you expect disappointment, when the disappointment doesn't happen, it makes it hard to enjoy the good thing that came out of it because you expected disappointment. So your mind was already geared towards expecting a negative thing. And when that negative thing becomes a positive thing, you can't handle it well because you're expecting a negative thing. To use an analogy, consider the person who carries a heavy umbrella on every outing, regardless of weather conditionings. Regardless of weather conditions. Well, they'll certainly be prepared for unexpected rain. They're also burdening themselves unnecessarily on countless beautiful days, missing the simple pleasure of feeling the sun's warmth directly on their skin. In this analogy, we can see and take out the burden part. So you're always carrying this umbrella, expecting it to rain, expecting it to rain. On the days where it doesn't rain, one, at least according to me, the reason why you wouldn't enjoy the sunlight is because even then, throughout the entire day, there are no clouds in the sky, but you're still expecting it to rain. So you think the umbrella is a tool, and in the case of enjoyment of situation, it's actually a burden to you. So another instance could be someone who approaches every new romantic opportunity with an expectation of failure. They might successfully shield themselves from potential heartbreak, but they simultaneously rob themselves of the butterflies, excitement, and profound emotional connection that makes dating and relationship formation such a uniquely enriching human experience. So when you get into it doesn't have to be dating relationships, it can even be regular friendships. When you get into friendships, if you're always expecting the person to disappoint you or to not reply or to basically not make effort, yes, to some extent you have shielded yourself from heartbreak or being disappointed. So if that does happen and they don't respond and they don't reply, like, oh, I expected that. But on the other hand, it stops you from giving 100% to this friendship that could potentially have a good impact in your life. So that's missed opportunities of joy is one of the negatives. The second negative, I'd say, is self-fulfilling prophecies. A particularly interesting aspect of consistently expecting disappointment is potential to become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Our expectations often unconsciously influence our behavior, actions, and even our body language in ways that can inadvertently create the very outcomes we're trying to protect ourselves against. For example, consider the talented individual who never attempts to join a competitive sports team because they've already convinced themselves that they will be rejected, inevitably. By allowing fear to prevent them from even participating in tryouts, They have essentially guaranteed the very failure they feared without ever giving themselves a chance to succeed. In this case specifically, you're basically intentionally limiting your potential, is how I would summarize it. This pattern of thinking can gradually evolve into a cycle of self-imposed limitations, leading to decreased motivation, reduced personal growth, and shrinking comfort zone that limits life's possibilities. So again, in terms of the negatives, you miss opportunities of joy because you always have the one thing that you expect it to rain, but sometimes the sun shines, and therefore the umbrella becomes a burden. And second, you're extremely talented, but you don't give yourself a chance to try because you fear rejection. So we have done the positives and the negatives, but where is the balance in this situation? The key to navigating this complex psychological terrain lies in finding sustainable or unsustainable equilibrium between the protective realism, like being able to actually shield yourself from negative things in a good way, and also opportunity enabling optimism. So, being able to free yourself and actually take a chance at life, regardless of whether there'll be disappointment or not. So, one way is hope for the best and prepare for the worst. For example, when preparing for a significant job interview, the optimal approach involves thorough preparation, researching the company extensively, practicing responses to challenging questions, and developing a comprehensive backup plan, while simultaneously maintaining the confidence and positive mindset necessary to prevent yourself effectively and authentically during the interview process. So you can go in like, I'm prepared for this interview. I know this company, the position I want to work for, and the kind of questions I'll be asked. You get into the room where you're being interviewed, and yes, you have hope that you will succeed at this job, but you're also like, okay, if I don't get this job, it's okay. I can try this other one. Therefore, you have sort of expected disappointment, but your confidence hasn't changed because of it. So you can have second, first is hope for the best, prepare for the worst. Second is realistic optimism. So don't shut yourself down too fast. Consider embracing the concept of realistic optimism. So basically, a combination of positive expectations with practical awareness. This mindset acknowledges life's inherent challenges while maintaining faith in your ability to navigate them successfully. So, in conclusion, the statement or the quote from the movie reflects an understandable desire to protect ourselves from emotional pain, especially emotional pain. Adopting it as an unwavering life philosophy risks stunting our potential for personal growth and limiting our capacity for joy. While disappointment is an inevitable part of the human experience, it shouldn't be the lens through which we view all possibilities. The art of living well involves finding delicate balance between hope and preparation, optimism and pragmatism. As we navigate life's difficult challenges and opportunities, we might do well to remember that disappointment is a natural part of life's journey, but it need not define our expectations or limit our aspirations. We all have something we aspire to be or do, and we tend to make disappointment, fear of rejection, failure, all things that we use as excuses, not even reasons, but we use them as excuses to hinder us from achieving what we can. So rather than allowing the fear of disappointment to constrain your choices, use it as motivation to prepare more thoroughly, strive more persistently, and develop greater resilience by expecting growth from every experience, regardless of disappointment. In fact, in regards to the disappointment issue, think of every failure and every rejection as an added bonus to the learning experience. It sounds very negative, but the thing is, if you fail at something, you can't make that mistake again unless you're making that mistake intentionally. If you you can use like a kitchen analogy. If you put your hand on a hot stove as a child, unless you intentionally put your hand on your hot stove again intentionally, there is no way you will repeat that mistake. You can apply that to whatever it is, whatever the hot stove in your life is, that mistake you fear you'll make. And again, we don't know the future necessarily, so you can't know you'll make the mistake unless you try. And if you try and fail, use it as a lesson to build up next time you try that thing or something even bigger. So there are some quotes that I can leave you with in regards to this topic. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. Quote by Anon. Our greatest glory lies not in never failing, but in rising every time you fall and learning from each experience. That is Confucius. Set your goals high, prepare for challenges. That is Bo Jackson. And that is it. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Yoderverse. I feel like we can maintain a very good consistency in regards to this podcast. As usual, all relevant links to social platforms and now my newsletter, which will be bi-weekly, my bi-weekly newsletter on Substack and Medium. All links will be in the description below. It'll be a Linktree link that you'll see. And also, if you're interested in artistic content, I have an art Instagram and an art YouTube and various other art platforms. If that's the kind of content you enjoy, be sure to share this with someone who you think would like to hear it. And I am hoping to really stick to this thing and grow this podcast to where I believe it can be taken. So again, thank you very much for those who listen, whether it's on YouTube or Spotify. And I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.